Hi everyone, this is Miss Afric here. Today we're going to be learning about synthetic division. Alright, now we've known how to divide numbers for a little while. We could do it by hand, we can use our calculator also. Now we're going to be dividing polynomials with synthetic division. Remember, polynomials, so those are expressions with variables, and the variables usually have exponents in them. Alright, before we get to that, let's just think about how we divide regular numbers. Alright, so if we were doing 3 divided by 2, or another way to look at that is like 3 over 2, right? That's the division symbol, so 3 divided by 2. If we type that in our calculator, we're going to get 1.5. Alright, anytime we divide numbers, there are kind of two parts to our answer. Alright, this 1 is like the whole part of our answer. Alright, when I divided 3 by 2, I got one whole number out of it. The decimal part, I like to think of that as the remainder. Alright, when there's 0.5 of something left, that means that it couldn't quite divide completely. Alright, so that's kind of what's left over. When we do synthetic division with polynomials, we're going to have both of those parts in our answers also. The whole part and the remainder part. Alright, so let's get started and you can see exactly what I mean. Okay, so example 1, it says divide x squared minus 7x plus 4 divided by x minus 5. Now with synthetic division, the reason it's called synthetic division, or if you know what synthetic means, it's kind of like fake. The reason we call it that is because we actually do the division without the variables, and then we bring them back at the very end. So what we're going to do here with synthetic division is I'm going to take out the variables. The way we do that is take a look at this first part you have there. I want to identify all of the coefficients of that expression. So like right here, the coefficient will be a 1, there's a negative 7, and then a positive 4. I'm going to rewrite those underneath here. 1, negative 7, positive 4. So I've gotten rid of the variables. Alright, that makes it a little bit easier to do the division part. Now this is what I'm dividing, but I need to know what I'm dividing by, and that comes from this over here. Alright, what we do to figure out what we're dividing by is we set that expression equal to 0, the part we're dividing by, and solve. And that's going to give us the number that we're going to use in synthetic division. So x minus 5 equals 0. If I solve that, I just have to add 5 to both sides. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0, so I'm left with x equals a positive 5. So that 5 is what we're going to divide by, so I'm going to put it over here in its own little box because it's kind of important. Alright, now to start the actual division, I'm going to draw this line down here just a little bit below the coefficients that I wrote out. Make sure you leave some space there. It'll help you with the actual division. Alright, before we get started, I just want to warn you that the first time you see this, it might look a little confusing. But don't worry, we're going to do it a few times, and if you need to, you can always pause and re-watch and ask questions. Alright, that's the great thing about it. So, with synthetic division, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at our coefficients here. I'm going to take my first one and I'm going to bring it down all the way to below that line that I drew. Then I take that number and I'm going to multiply it by the number in my box. So 1 times 5, that's 5. That answer that I get, I'm going to put underneath the next number. So 1 times 5 equals 5, so I put it underneath the negative 7. Then those two numbers I'm going to add together. Negative 7 plus 5, that would be negative 2. And you can use your calculator whenever you need to in these. Alright, let's do it again. So now I have a negative 2 there. So again, I'm going to multiply it by the number in the box. Negative 2 times 5, that's negative 10. And then I'm going to put it underneath my next number. So negative 10. And then we will add whenever they're on top of each other like that. So 4 plus negative 10, that would be negative 6. Now when there's no more numbers left over here, that's how you know you're done. You're done with that part of it at least. Okay. Now this can't be my final answer because, like I said before, we have to bring the variables back at some point. Alright, so this first part of the answer that I got, those are going to contribute to the whole part of my answer. This last number here, that's going to be my remainder. In order to write your answer, you need to look back at your original expression that you were dividing. You need to look at the exponent of the first variable, so the degree of it. Alright, see how that's a 2 up there, x squared? Well, let's write this down, it's really important. In your answer, the degree should be 1 lower than what we started with. 1 lower than, than what we started with. So since that's an x squared, I know that my highest one in my answer is going to be an x to the 1, because 1 is 1 lower than 2. So what I'm going to do is this is going to be the coefficient of that term, and it's going to be an x to the first. And then I just go increasingly lower. So x to the first, well, my next one, this minus 2, is going to be an x to the 0. But remember, anything to the 0 power, that's just 1, so I actually don't even have to write that. And then I will write that my remainder is negative 6. R stands for remainder. So my final answer here is just x minus 2 with a remainder of negative 6. Alright, let's try it again. Don't worry if you were confused. We'll go again and we'll see if it makes more sense the second time around. And if not, we got one more example. Alright, example 2, there's a few more numbers here, so just be careful. We're going to take the coefficients from this first term. So I've got a 2, 11, 18, and 9. Then I need that number in that box that I'm going to divide by. So to do that, we set what we're dividing by equal to 0 and solve. So subtract 3 from both sides. X equals negative 3. So that's going to be a negative 3 over here in the box. I'm going to draw the line a little bit below those numbers. And now we're going to start doing synthetic division. Bring the first number down below the line. And remember, we always multiply by the number in the box and add over here with our coefficients. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 11 plus negative 6, that's going to give me 5. And again, 5 times negative 3, that would be negative 15. 18 plus negative 15 is 3. And remember, you can use your calculator whenever you feel like you need to. No big deal. Again, 3 times negative 3, that's going to be a negative 9. 9 plus negative 9, that's 0. So remember, this is the whole part of our answer, and this right here is the remainder. Okay, so to write our final answer, remember that in our final answer, the exponent has to be 1 degree lower than what we started with. So it's going to be an x to the 2, or an x squared. So we've got 2x squared plus 5x, or x to the first, which we can just call x, plus 3, and then we have a remainder of 0. And that's our final answer. Alright, let's do one more. Example 3. Okay, now notice on example 3 there's even more numbers. Just remember, when there are more numbers, you just have to be a little bit more careful. Alright, use your calculator if you need to, otherwise just double check your work. So I'm going to take my coefficients. That's going to be a 10, an 8, a 4, a negative 2, and a negative 3. Watch those negatives. And then over here, I'm going to set x plus 1 equal to 0 and solve. Subtract 1 from both sides, x equals negative 1. So that's my number in the box. Okay, draw your line underneath. Remember, we are multiplying by whatever's in the box, adding by, adding by whatever's in the coefficients. So bring your first number down. 10 times negative 1 is negative 10. And then we add. 8 plus negative 10 is negative 2. Just a little hint to help you with some of these calculations. Remember that when we're adding, if the bigger number is negative, it's negative. If the bigger number is positive, answer is positive. Okay. Alright, negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. And then add. 4 plus 2 is 6. Again. 6 times negative 1 is... there we go. Negative 6. Negative 2 plus negative 6 is negative 8. And last one, negative 8 times negative 1 is positive 8. and negative 3 plus 8 is positive 5. So I know those lines make it look kind of messy, but you don't have to draw those. I'm just drawing them to help you out. Alright, so this is the whole number part. This is our remainder. We've got an x to the 4th up here, so that means we're going to have to start with an x to the 3rd and then continue downward. So minus 2x squared plus 6x minus 8, and our remainder is going to be 5. And there's our answer. Alright, well, like it says, head out to a table and get started working on your in-class practice. If you still have questions, feel free to re-watch parts of the video. Otherwise, just make sure you ask your teacher. See you later.